So, told you last time, Daniel, that I wanted to stir away from constantly analyzing your games, which I believe is best thing to do, but not the only thing to do, and we need different dynamics other than me telling you your mistakes. So, today, we are going to go a little bit more old-fashioned in the teaching department, where I'm going to tell you a lot of things, and do our learning that way rather than asking, although I will ask a lot. Now, I also happen to notice something in your game, but it's actually a common phenomenon on club level chess when people start playing open Sicilian with white. They usually find it quite easy to play against systems like the Najdorf, for example. By the way, are you on game one?
Yep, I can see
So
the board
you're
moving.
following me,
Yep,
yeah?
pieces moving.
Yeah, so they can find it, the Najdorf, quite logical, whether they play bishop g5 or the English attack. It has got a pattern, it has got a common scheme in it that they can follow, right? And there is a logic to the setup that we go f3, g4 and attack on the king's side, yada, yada, yada. Same applies for the dragon and so on. So there is a big bunch there that we feel that even if we don't know theory, we can reasonably well play it because we roughly know who is going what way. However, usually, and this actually stays around for quite a while, people tend to struggle in structures against the Taimanov, but even more so against the Kan. And the reason for this is because the Kan or Neo-Paulsen features a very different setup and strategy from Black's point of view that allows them to develop usually queenside pieces before the kingside. And what that creates is a situation where the usual kingside attacks seem to attack nothing because there is nothing there, and at the same time we feel like we are quite a bit pressured on the queen side. And so these setups usually require a different response from you. So the first thing that we must take on board, and this is a slight reference to your last game, is that you cannot play the English attack against this setup.
Right.
It's just not going to work because your g4, g5 is too late to the party. I haven't played d6, which allows me to accomplish two things for black. In fact, probably more than two, but two main ones. One, I can often come out for a pin here on b4, which is quite annoying. And two, very often what I can do is that I can entirely neglect playing d6 and go straight for d5 with something like b4, knight moves, and then d5. And so black usually manages to get into some kind of a counterattack a lot faster than in the traditional Najdorf structures. And for this reason, against the Kan, the English attack and a few other setups are completely out of fashion or not recommended at all. In fact, here we are going to employ a completely different setup, Daniel, that is going to be based on quite different ideas than what we are used to. For starters, we are going to actually definitely develop kingside. We are going to castle kingside, excuse me. And funnily enough, and this is where the second thing comes in, we are actually often going to use the queen side as our own playground and attacking area. So what happens often here is that people play a3 to stop b4. This is one of the most common a3 mistakes in Sicilians, and this is a move that I actually made a YouTube video about in this particular position and in some similar ones, explaining why it is very bad. And the reason why it's bad is because actually b5 is not threatening right away with b4. So if I play a move like this and they play b4, after knight e2, bishop b7, all that happened was that they separated these pawns, and now the b4 pawn is quite loose. And there are multiple ways how you can go about it. Usually white plays c3 and we recreate this structure, and now white is significantly better than when there was a black pawn here and the white one here, because b4 is no longer available, a6 is alone, and in general black doesn't have any queenside play. And so not only are we not stopping b4, but in fact, as you will see in many variations, we are actually going to provoke it. So watch what happens. Queen b6, knight b3. Note that bishop b3 here is meant by bishop c5, which is a theoretical variation, but I would not recommend playing this with white because it's a bit dull. So knight b3, queen c7. Note that queen c7 is already an only move to play for black. Because if they play bishop b7, you are going to play a4. Now, if they take, we have got an immediate winning attack on the queen side. Check this out.
Yep.
Yeah, and note, by the way, the amazing lead-in development, which features this line throughout, by the way. But usually black manages to weather the storm if they manage to keep the position reasonably closed. So a4 capture is not doable. And after b4 comes the first called shower, a5, back, and game over again because we're coming in and the queen side is gonna fall apart.
That's great.
Yeah, so now we are already dealing extreme damage to black. And as you can see, this is still an attack, but not the traditional I'm going to murder the face of your king type of attack. It's a very different positional concept. So
Yeah.
for this reason, queen c7 is forced. We castle, bishop b7, queen e2. Now this move is played with the idea of threatening e5 in case knight f6 comes. Yeah, so black very often in this setup holds d6 back as long as they can. Because like I said, often they want to play immediate d5, but also there is another reason, and that is that as soon as d6 comes, when we play a4, b4, the b4 pawn will no longer be protected by the bishop. You will see why that's important.
Yeah.
So queen e2, d6, bishop d2. Now, a lot of people would go here without any hesitation to e3, which is by no means a bad move. The reason why you prefer d2, however, is twofold. First, we are looking to play a4, b4, knight a2 when the bishop also attacks the b4 pawn.
I see.
Two, sometimes if that queenside initiative is not working out, we play for an e5 break. Now, if you want to play for e5, you don't put a bishop here and block your own attack, right?
Right.
So the piece layout is going to look like this, and all of a sudden, you are threatening with the e5 break.
Yep.
And so, remember, Daniel, this piece layout, because this is a really, really common one against all Kan setups. And this with bishop on e3 is just completely bungled up. Like, this doesn't really add up. Like, if you look at this now, with queen here, this just doesn't look right at all. If you ever have to play a bishop e3 setup, then usually the queen goes to f3. So the bishop e3 setups normally look like this. But again, I do not recommend this against this particular layout, because black usually gets quite a bit of pressure on e4. Especially because you're sitting in this pin. Anyway, castles, queen e2, bishop d2, knight f6, and a4. So this is what's really unusual about this setup, that this is pretty much the only one I can think of where we regularly try to dismantle black pretty much all three segments of the board wherever we can strike first. Excuse me. You will see different examples in this lesson where we are striking in the center, somewhere in striking the king side, and quite a few where we actually strike on the queen side. So takes is almost always immediately off the cards, because after rook takes, this is just chronically weak. And you just triple up and hurt. And also knight a5 is a supremely annoying move for this bishop to deal with. Because giving up this bishop is just non-negotiable.
Yeah.
That's death.
Yeah.
So that is not happening. Bishop on b7 after knight a5 is just, no goes on. So b4, knight a2. By the way, do the squares and the arrows come up on your end when I make one?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that again?
I said when I make an arrow, do you see it on your end as well?
Yeah, I do. I do.
Awesome.
Yeah, I should just let you know, I am... it says my internet connection's a little unstable, unfortunately, of all the times that we finally got Zoom. So I am getting occasional audio dropouts, but so far I can follow just about everything you're saying. It hasn't been a major issue.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, for our beloved viewers, by the way, the donkey behind me was a semi-joke from a stream layout from last time, and then we decided to keep it on. Reflects my personality. Anyway, knight a2, d5. Now, this is very logical, right? This is the textbook chess coach András principle that if one side abandons the center, we strike in the center, right?
Yep.
So that is textbook. The problem, however, is that there is more than one principle at play here. Because the other principle is that you don't blast the position open when your king is in the middle and you are completely undeveloped. Now that doesn't make this move
Right.
bad, but it certainly means that we're not particularly fussed about this. Now, after e5, knight f7, f4, do you recognize, Daniel, this structure at all?
Uh, do I recognize what? I'm sorry, can you repeat
The
that word?
structure, the pawn structure. What does it look like?
Hmm. Oh, looks kind of like a French.
Exactly. And this is why it's very good that we know our structures. This is a French structure. Now, usually in this particular French structure, not usually, but quite often, the white king is here. And thank God that we are not there now. Because not only are we not getting now attacked on the queen side, but once again, we can turn this c5 business onto them.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Now, black doesn't really have a clear plan here compared to the usual French, because the c5 and d4 pawns respectively have been traded off prematurely from black's point of view, and so the beloved tension from black's point of view on d4 is non-existent.
Right. Yeah.
On top of that, the black king side is utterly underdeveloped, and so they really need to watch for f5 breaks. Which is why I told you that this system is really complicated to play, because we literally use queenside center and kingside to try to dismantle our opponent. Hence g6. And at this point, I don't know if I agree with all white moves. King h1 was played here. Can you tell me, please, what's wrong with knight here? Let's invite some tactics into our lesson.
Okay. So we're saying knight takes b4. Hmm. It's not immediately apparent to me the drawback to knight takes b4.
It's a tactical blunder. And
Oh, okay.
King h1 was to fix it, so that's a big hint there for you.
Okay. Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah. Knight takes b4, knight takes b4, queen c5 check, and you fork. Uh,
Careful there.
no. Okay. Yep.
Close, but not quite. And besides, queen c5 check would not win anything because the bishop is guarding this, yeah?
Yeah. I
So
was
you
too
need to
quickly
do a
looking for.
slight adjustment there. You are on the money. Like,
Okay.
you put this together rather well, but we need to be exactly right about what move order and what square you're using.
Okay. Takes. Okay. So perhaps knight takes b4, bishop takes b4, bishop takes b4, queen b6 check.
That is it, sir. That is it.
Okay.
So knight b4 loses to bishop takes, queen b6. The textbook case of loose pieces drop off.
Yep.
If I wanted to try to save the day for white here, I would play bishop c5 and then counter pin. But this loses to multiple things, most notably just back, and the knight defends the queen. So we are dead. So hence king h1. Now this genuinely hangs. So black needs to defend. And now we went on an attack with queen e1. Again, the b4 pawn is on. This is, again, Daniel, the textbook proof that very often b4 is actually playing to our hands, not to theirs. Because now this is a liability. Yeah?
Yeah.
So they have to play
Yep.
the supremely ugly a5, which makes which square chronically weak?
b6.
B6 was already weak before this.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah?
Okay. Yeah, b5 then.
b5. Now, if you think about it, Daniel, and I don't want to go into too many tiny details, but this opening started off like this. So
Hmm.
if someone told you that you are going to win this chess game by exploiting the weakness of the b5 square, you would have gone like, you are bananas. And
Right.
yet, by provoking these black pawns to move up, we loosen up the territory behind and we make it quite vulnerable. And so now after c3, black has to engage with the capture, otherwise this whole chain just falls apart. And after takes, knight takes, we are in a very funny situation where we are defeating black in the Sicilian on the queen side, with both kings potentially being castled to short.
Right.
And this is why I'm telling you this is quite unique, but beautiful nonetheless. Knight b5, queen b8, and here actually, my engine tells me a very crude and yet absolutely stunning winning concept. White he played the very thematic and cliched bishop b1 to secure the bishop versus the knight. Yeah? So that's
Yep.
stock standard, even if it happens at the expense of temporarily walling the rook in. By the way, white here has a tactical threat, which is the other reason why white felt justified playing this. What would white do if it was their turn again?
Hmm.
We can win a pawn.
Okay. Hmm. Looking at checks and not seeing
No,
what
there is no
checks.
check, so you should move on to captures, right?
Okay. Yep. Well, only one capture that I see here. Okay, that kind of narrows it. Let's see.
Actually, there are two. You can take this or this.
Oh, that's true. I missed those. Yeah.
I had to look very hard, Daniel, to find the second one, just to open this up to a real contest, so that you have two to pick from.
Let's see. Hmm. Let's see. I don't know why my brain's a little slow right now to double check this. I think I have it, but let me double check. Let's see. Yeah, I mean, it seems like knight takes a5, rook takes a5, bishop takes b4, bishop takes b4, queen takes b4,
Yeah, this
wins a
is
pawn.
just complete carnage. Knight a5.
Yeah,
For some reason, the study doesn't allow me to move pieces. Oh, because it's not our
hmm.
turn. So pass, takes, and it's all over. Red rover. Your pawn at
Yeah,
96 is incoming. It's all over. Removal of
yeah,
defender. Yeah.
yep, yeah.
Very basic tactical theme. However, the winning move, according to the very crude engine, is simply to improve the queen's position to g3, thus defending the bishop and not caring about the take, because after queen takes now, the a5 pawn is essentially going to drop for free.
Hmm.
But better still, Daniel, I found a line here. I don't remember what I tried to do for black here that featured f5 next. I think somehow the black bishops came off. Was it knight c5? No. I just went through this before the lesson because I was in yeah, bishop e7 f5, that's it. And that is a beautiful way to demonstrate the tactical opportunities in the Sicilian. So the idea is simply to blast the position open before the black king could castle, and boy, this is just big. Look at this. ef, bishop f5, gf5, and you're just going in with knight d6 check, bishop takes, pawn takes d6. And one reason why I love chess, Daniel, is the fact that the engine evaluates this position as plus 8.
That's great.
Right? Plus 8. That means that we are essentially a queen up.
Yeah.
And you don't see a mate. And there isn't one. Like, this is just the true beauty of chess, that you look at this king, you look at the avenues that allow you to access that king, and there is just no hope. One notable thing, which is positional and not tactical about this position, is that the whole entire black position is like a Swiss cheese on the dark squares, and they don't have a dark squared bishop, and we do.
Hmm.
And so winning ideas revolve around the idea of queen in followed by bishop in followed by here. So I will show you a simple line just to demonstrate how this turns into a very, very, very quick 1-0. Check, check, check. King c8 and check. How is this for a 1? Knight takes,
Yeah.
rook e8. King here, rook takes.
Wow.
2 pieces still hanging, by the way. This is typically,
Amazing.
Daniel, a position that I would recommend for someone like you to set it up on the board and try to analyze it for yourself. Like, okay, how would I win if black played queen d8?
Yeah.
Yeah, and you just try to think and calculate, and you go like, oh yeah, okay, of course, it's easy. Check, king f8, bishop h6 is mate. Okay, queen d8 is not playable. How do I win if they go king d8? And you go like, oh wow, look at this. Check, king c8, and then queen check here hits king and rook. And analyzing a position like this by yourself, by the way, by yourself, is one of the most rewarding learning procedure in terms of invested time versus value gained.
Yeah.
Because here you are creating an environment that is quite likely to occur in a game of your own. Total chaos on the board. And the engine tells you are winning, but you don't know why. You shut the engine down and just analyze it. You just start playing moves for black and then trying to refute them. And the more lines you engage with, the more you feel like you are owning the position, you understand it, you become, an expert of what is going on the board. And after like half an hour, you feel like you could explain this to Vishy Anand if he walked past, and you could tell him that, dude, look at this. How awesome piece is this with bishop f5, and then after take knight d6 takes, we are gonna kill them like this, and then you come up with some awesome lines. So yeah, that's just a testament to how complex and yet beautiful the Sicilian is. After bishop b1, bishop a6, the game took a little bit of a dive. Not for the better. F5 still wins here. Amazingly, f5 takes, bishop f5 is just an insanely powerful attack here. For white, again, the idea is the same, that we go in with knight d6 check. Disappointingly, it's only +7 now.
So I have a question for you, Andres, about a position like this.
Yeah.
And the one just prior to it that you talked about.
Yeah, which
Where
was a bit cleaner, so I will leave that up.
Okay. So you can do a piece sacrifice here, and it opens the king up such that you now have a winning position, even though you're down a piece for, was it 1 pawn or 2 pawns?
I don't know. I never. Daniel, that I never count that fluff. Like,
okay.
I don't know. I honestly tell. I'm not kidding you. I don't know, and I don't want to know. Irrelevant. But
we'll
go on.
Yeah. At best, you have a knight I think a knight or a bishop for a pawn, and like you said, even the engine in that position isn't saying, oh, it's mate in 10 or something. So there is no exact mating sequence to calculate if you were to ask yourself, should I make this piece sacrifice? Instead, you're just you're doing it under the understanding of the position, right? That
Correct.
Once the dust settles, you just see how many, like you said, open avenues and opportunities you have to create and say, I think this will work.
Yep.
That's something that I don't know that I would yet do in a game, although now I feel like it's something that's a next step for me that I should attempt sometimes if I feel like I can get a position like this.
Yeah, look, there are 2 things that contribute to that factor. One of them is lack of experience. That you haven't been, and by the way, in this regard, analyzing positions like this is really important. So what I just said before is vitally important, because experience is not only gained by playing games. Experience in this case translates to being exposed to positions like this. That doesn't have to be a competitive environment. That
Hmm.
could be you studying chess, and your chess study is to set up a position like this or find it in a book or wherever, and you just go like, I want to, invest some time into exploring how I would go with this. And by the way, best practice here too is to not move pieces and try to calculate your guts out,
Okay.
and go from there. The second one, and I hate to tell you this because I know that you will think that I sound like a broken record, is that part of it comes for most people, especially adult improvers, is that when they learn chess and they learn the basics of chess, their first go-to in every single time when they are in the slightest uncertainty about who is doing what is to count material, which is terrible as a
Hmm.
habit or as a
Hmm.
concept to teach. So I'm not saying that you are terrible. What I'm saying is that this is a really, really awful habit that a lot of grown-ups learn when they learn chess as adults, because it's a really easy go-to.
Hmm.
And I spoke at length about this, that this is quantifiable. I have got one more wood than you do. Open lines and avenues and attack, that's all vague concepts. They don't earn you wins as easily, at least in the amateur's mind, as an extra queen.
Right.
And so, what I'm trying to say in a topsy-turvy way is that our evaluations tend to be absolutely miswired or misdirected uh, by wrong priorities.
Yeah, that makes
But
sense.
me saying this is not gonna make you change. So that's the problem there. That's why I'm saying that it comes with experience, because once you try it like 200 times in 200 different positions, this will eventually turn around.
Do you recommend that someone like me, or people say at about my rating or somewhere around there, if they feel like they can create this type of position that you have set up on the board, if they calculate, say, the next whatever it is, 3 to 5 moves down, and they see a position that results in something like this, that looks like it could be really good for them,
Yeah.
that they just go for it and learn from the experience, like take the
Oh,
chance, take the
absolutely.
risk. Yeah,
100%.
yeah.
100%. Therein comes the next problem, Daniel, which is part of chess intuition and part of, I don't know what to call it, is to have the ability to have a look at a position and make a call of whether that sacrifice is likely to yield something or not.
Yeah.
By the way,
Yeah.
another practical experience, practical exercise that I would recommend to do, especially if you have got friends and fellow chess punks and whatnot, is to set this up and play this position out in a blitz game, but like 10 times back to back.
Mm.
And it's very important that you play it out with black as well, so that you begin to hate this.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because if we go with the old measure of, oh, black is a piece up, okay, I will let you enjoy your extra piece. Let's go. You are black and white. Let's see how you go with your extra piece. And then you begin to hate it from the other side, and you will begin
Hmm.
to appreciate the power of initiative even more. And that's
Yeah.
actually a really, like, that those, in my opinion, that those types of learning experiences be 10 lessons with me.
Mm.
Because it doesn't matter what I tell you, in a lesson. Then you have to put in your own hard yards for it to evolve into a learning experience that then changes the way you look at the game.
Yeah. Although I need a lesson with you to know to do that.
That is true, but what I'm saying is that I do know the value of a chess system really well, and as a chess coach, it sounds stupid, but I do believe that almost all the time the greatest learning happens in your own home environment when you are with yourself and you have those aha moments, which are
Hmm.
fundamentally probably based on what you hear from me and your other coaches and what you read in your books. But it's like a gym where you go to the gym and the dude tells you that the way how you do that bench press is completely wrong. Like every movement in there, the way how your body's positioned is wrong. And if someone didn't tell you that, you would never figure it out. But
Right.
then you have to go back 100 times and start doing it correctly. And you need to do it 100 times so that this bench press, which, let's face it, is not the most complicated movement, is actually correctly done.
Mm-hmm.
And so,
Yeah.
yes, you needed the coach to tell you, but it's your own extra work that is going to make it happen. All right,
Gotcha.
let's move on because I have a lot to show you, and time flies. Yeah, so this game actually went a little bit sideways, and I don't know if I want to very deeply engage with the rest. No, I don't. So let's leave this on as a key moment, but I also want to, as a main takeaway, for you to see that the queen side falling apart was a key feature. And by the way, the irony of this game is that black in the end managed to keep the queen side together, but it came at a huge cost of the king being stuck in the middle, the king side completely undeveloped, and even the queen side pieces are very awkwardly tucked away, especially these two big boys in the corner, and they are extremely ineffective in a position when, the center blasts open.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
So that was that. Now, I'm going to show you another one, and this is going to be a much a higher quality game. We are talking about Ponomarev of he being a former knockout world champion against Gallagher, who is a really well known Swiss grandmaster. Funnily enough, the opening is the same. Now, in this position, they usually kick this knight with either queen b6 or bishop c5. And in both cases, usually the piece that kicks the knight goes then back. Which looks like a loss of a tempo, but at the same time, you force my knight back to b3, which obviously I'm not super excited about. On this note, by the way, never ever play knight b3 in any Sicilian without knowing why you're doing it. Because this is typically a move that a lot of club players make all the time, every time, for absolutely no reason. And it happens a fair bit in Sicilians, but always for a reason. And if you can't explain to yourself why you do it, don't do it.
Okay.
In fact, that applies to chess in general. But these, I have seen grandmasters do this all the time, I will do it too type of thinking usually leads to nowhere. Okay, so right now knight b3 is very well explained by the fact that it's hanging.
Right. You're saying that people play knight b3 even without that d-knight being attacked?
All the time, Daniel. Like, let me show you an example. Knight c6, knight b3 in a heartbeat. If I turn on let's just for funsies, I'm going to turn on now the Lichess database. Knight b3 was played 15,000 times in this position. Makes absolutely zero sense.
Right. Yeah.
None whatsoever. Like, you would be paying money for black to take you here and bring your queen in here, which is, for example, after bishop g5, one of the worst moves you can... Well, that's harsh, but it's not a threat by any stretch. So why would you go back from the center to a totally useless square?
Right.
Yeah, and I could bring you up a myriad of examples. Now, the problem is that there are very subtle examples. I will show you one just to showboat a little bit. And you being a Schoeningen player, this will actually come to you quite handy. I will show you a very famous example when they play knight b3 where it looks a little bit weird. So in this position after bishop d7, the biggest main line for white here is knight b3. And that is not an easy move to grasp. But then comes the logic. When black played bishop d7, their intention was that in case I play whatever, they want to take, and play bishop c6. You as a Scheveningen player to be, this maneuver you will find is a bit of your bread and butter. And this also allows you to later play for an e5 break, having sufficient control of the d5 square with knight and bishop. This is just a perfectly harmonious, very nice piece layout for black. However, if I play here knight b3, all of a sudden, both the knight and the bishop actually look rather crazy and useless. And in fact, this main line continues. Now a5 is threatened with b6, g4, threatening g5, and then black plays bishop c8. And after g5, knight d7, bishop f3, bishop b7, We are in one of the biggest main lines of the Scheveningen classical bishop e2 line, which was, amongst others, tested in the Karpov-Kasparov match. This is one of the
Wow.
deeper examples of knight b3, but again, as you could see, there was a very good explanation as to why that happened. All right, back to
Sure.
business. So knight back, queen g4. Now, there are two big schools here debating. One of them is saying that black often wants to play g6 anyway, and there is no point provoking it. The other school says, no, that's a weakening move. I am very happy to provoke that, and only then pull back to e2.
Okay.
I'm a little bit of a fence sitter on this one, but I'm telling you for the sake of clarity that the engine thinks this is best.
Right. Right.
I play these setups with both colors, so that probably contributes to me being a bit unsure about myself.
Is this a con?
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. So, castles was played. As you can see, our piece layout is exactly the same as previous game. b4. And here's something curious happened. And this is very important that you understand this too. So b4 came without us provoking it, which is good news. It's good news. However, knight here on a4 now is immediately losing to bishop d7 and we lost the piece.
Yep.
So be very careful. So now either retreat is good. And you would think that if you played this, I would have a massive go at you for going backwards. But again, look at the flip side of the coin. The black pawn chain again on the queen's side, or rather the black pawns have been provoked way too far out. And now the structure is becoming loose. And you will have both c3 and a3 to pick at this pawn. In fact, after bishop b7, a3 was played. And the idea is crystal clear. We want to take, have a target here, and have the beloved knight a5 that I showed you earlier.
Yep.
And we are killing it like champions. They played bishop knight c6, excuse me, and we play bishop d2. Yeah, we don't take because then knight takes will pick off the bishop. That being said, this is completely fine. In fact, way better for white too. And in fact, something similar will happen in the game too. So that actually could have been played, but they played bishop d2. Takes. Now, speaking of how to evaluate positions and what to look at first, if I played here d5, Daniel, what would you do? Let's establish first the purpose of d5.
Opens up the diagonal for the dark square bishop attacking the a3 rook.
Yep.
And
That's good enough for me. So what do we do?
okay. Okay. Let's see.
Just so that I'm tweaking your mindset whilst you're working on it, the bad mentality and the old Daniel would go like, where do I go with the rook?
You got me. You got me.
Yeah?
Okay. All right.
Which restricts your thinking way too much and reduces...
I was looking for...
Yeah?
I was looking for ways to block, maybe. But yeah, it was still kind of defensive-minded.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is, no.
Okay. Okay.
Let's see how we can punch them in the face.
Let's see. Well, let's see. I haven't calculated deep yet, but we could. I'm looking at the possibility of e takes d5. Perhaps d5, bishop takes.
Funny thing is that you have got too many winning moves here. Yeah, go on.
I kind of like e takes d5.
Okay.
So for example, if e takes d5, bishop takes a3.
Yep.
D takes c6.
Yep.
And then I'm not sure which way black would go, if it would...
Let's just go with bishop takes c6.
Okay. And then b takes a3.
Yep. And you evaluated that as completely winning for white, I'm guessing.
Yes.
Very good. Now, obviously,
Yeah.
after ed5, they will take back with the queen, right?
Yeah, they can do
Because
that. Sure.
the line that you provided, whilst is correct, is entirely unplayable for black.
Right. Okay. So you're saying calculate if queen takes d5 after that?
Well, look, I don't want you to calculate it too far, really, because now this is going into territory where there's no point in calculating, because after ed queen d, both knight c3 and knight e3 kick the queen out, and now your position is so sensational that you can get away with moving the rook and still be like +5 here. But there is another capture here, Daniel, that we need to look at, my friend, that is more important to calculate than ed, although ed is extremely thematic and correct.
Okay.
But in order to enforce this mindset of we are punching first, let's have a look at another capture.
Okay. So perhaps. Hmm. Hmm. I was looking at rook takes a6 or maybe bishop takes
One
a6.
of them is outstanding.
Bishop takes a6. I like better.
Yeah, line please.
Yeah. Yep. Bishop takes a6. Bishop takes a3. Bishop takes b7. Uh, and then black has a choice of, I guess, protecting its rook or getting the bishop back to safety.
What about the knight
But
on c6, Daniel? Isn't that the most important or the most hurting wound of all?
yes, it is. Yeah, you're right.
Right. So after bishop takes
Yeah,
a6, bishop a3 is entirely unplayable. They will have to take you back on a6.
right, right.
And then after multiple trades on a6, you're just a pawn up and c6 is hanging. So bishop takes
Yep.
a6, according to the engine, is +6, by the way.
Oh wow. Yep, that makes sense.
Just for the record. So here it's already so tragic that yeah, you don't want to know the types of moves the engine recommends. Top move is knight b8. That tells the story. Now, this
Yeah.
is just to highlight, Daniel, the mentality and the you know the way how we look at position defines the outcome immensely. Like if your
Yeah.
gut instinct is to move the rook here, we just walk past the +7. Just out of simply being, wrongly wired or incorrectly wired, because as soon as I told you to leave this here, look around, you found both this and this within very short period of time and proved both of them to be far superior.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. So,
Yep.
tuck queen c8 was played. Knight e3. Where is the knight going, Daniel? Why did we not go back here? Why here?
Hmm. We headed to b6, so knight c4, knight b6.
Very good. The knight on c4 is vastly superior to c3 because from here you have got various things in your sight and targets. And then there is a third one which will actually play out in the game. Knight c4, queen c7. And where is that knight gonna go now, Daniel, from c4?
Hmm. It's a good question.
I did mention this
It's
motif in this lesson already, far earlier.
Oh, okay.
It's got
Hmm.
something to do with the bishop on b7 being a delicious piece to target.
Yeah, okay, so I mean, you could eventually go to knight a5, but
By eventually,
uh
you mean right now.
oh, that's right, because it's defended by the knight. I forgot about that.
And the
Yeah.
bishop and the rook.
Right. Oh, well, I wasn't thinking so much of like it being that
Oh,
it
you meant
hangs.
replaceable. Yes.
Yeah, I can bring the knight. Yeah, right. Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
That part I missed. Yep.
Yep,
Yeah.
that's the idea. Take, and the bishop is gone. And without this bishop, the whole position falls apart because there is zero pressure here, and the main defender of the a6 pawn is a goner.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
excellent.
You know how
Yep.
you mentioned that there's like, um, and I play this like against the Najdorf, the English attack and such. Is there a name for this kind of response to the Kan that we're doing, similar to like
Not that
the
I'm
English thing?
aware of.
Okay.
Main
Okay.
lines.
Okay.
Main lines, really. No. No, not really. Not that I'm aware of. Anyway, so what happened was that they hunted down a d3 bishop, which was a somewhat decent measure. You know, that at least if the defender of the pawn is gone, at least the attacker of the pawn is gone too. However, the problem remains. Actually, the problem is multifaceted, and I'm very curious to know what you would do here for white.
Hmm. You say the problem remains for black, right?
Yes,
That's what you
but it's
meant. Yeah.
of a different nature, or I should rather say that, well, the problems multiply.
Hmm. Well, the king isn't castled yet, and it seems like you could prevent kingside castling by going bishop h6.
Chess is a beautifully simple game, Daniel. Beauty. Bishop h6, and all of a sudden we have created a very new and very major problem for black, adding a new item to the already extensive list of problems, and that is that now they can't castle, which, by the way, interestingly, is going to enhance the value of your ability to occupy these queenside open files. Because then when
Yeah.
we penetrate, it's really gonna stink.
Right.
Right? If
Yeah.
I were to castle, then I would probably find measures to neutralize this open file and the penetration alongside it. But as is, I just cannot coordinate the army at all. Interestingly enough, by the way, it wasn't played. They played rook b3 first. To be fair to them, castles here would immediately fall on its face with rook b7 when queen d8 loses to knight c6.
Hmm. Yep.
And queen e8 loses to bishop h6.
Okay. Yep.
But quite frankly, I would much rather keep a king in the middle than win an exchange like that and lose some of my initiative. Anyway, they played rook c8 in order to meet rook b7 with rook c7.
Okay.
Knight c4, now a new threat from here. What you can see, Daniel, is that although oftentimes our threats are of positional nature, we still disallow black to catch their breath. Like, this is still vicious aggression. Look at that. Queen hanging. Penetration threatened. Knight b6 threatened. Like, it's not like we are giving black an easy ride here and abundance of choices. It may look a little bit less direct than the gung-ho pawn storms, but that doesn't make it any less effective. Bishop d8, and now comes bishop h6. And black is
Yeah.
completely busted here. I'll show you the rest because it's quite instructive. d5, knight b6, trading off the bishop, and once again note the tragic level of weaknesses of the dark squares, which of course without a dark square bishop is going to be an everlasting problem. Queen a4, queen f3, hitting the knight, b3 just to not to move the rook, to be cheeky, take, queen a5, rook b7. These are very easy moves to reproduce, I guess, or replay or recreate. Knight is now glued to the defense of the f7 pawn. Knight e5 loses to which move, Daniel?
Um. Hmm. Let's see. I feel like this should be simple. Hmm. Uh. I like. I think I like Queen F6. Um,
You mean you like the idea of giving two different mate in once?
yeah, exactly.
I,
Right.
I, I do too.
Right.
I do too, sir. I think you're doing splendidly well there.
I was
Okay.
looking for an immediate like check or capture, but I realized
No, not
I didn't want,
quite.
yeah, yeah.
Queen h5, Queen f6 will do it. Queen h5, Queen f4. Now this is a really, really nice move in so many ways. It avoids the queen trade, which is of course an absolute no-go. It defends the bishop, but the most important effect is to prepare for the invasion,
Hmm.
which had to
Yeah.
be dodged, but it couldn't quite be deflected. Knight c5, rook a7. This is actually the last moves for black before resignation. Queen d6 is decisive. G5, Queen d6, and it's mate in 4 now.
Yeah, I noticed how much the queen and bishop are maneuvering on the dark squares.
Yep.
Uh, there.
I
Yeah.
mean, this made black look like an absolute rookie, right?
Yeah. For sure.
And we're talking about the 2550 GM when 2550 actually meant something like 20 years ago. That was 50
That
rating points off of a dream rating.
that's a subject I'd love to hear more about another time from you.
Which is?
Oh, just like you said with 25, if you said like 2500 used to mean something, um, right?
Oh, well,
Isn't that
look,
what you said?
it's just how chess has evolved. Like, when I was a youngster, a
Hmm.
2600 GM meant a god,
Hmm.
right? Like nowadays, the equivalent of that is a 2750. 27 is not even cutting it.
Right.
So with the new generation, you know that like what you guys see now as the Olympus of chess used to be
Hmm.
far lower, and so in comparison, if 2600 is a god, then 2550 is 50 ratings off of being a total boss.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's actually a quite an interesting experience and experiment too, to look up rating lists, FIDE rating lists from like the mid 90s, just to
Hmm.
see how much ratings have gone up and what like the top 20 looked that time compared to 20 years later. Fascinating stuff. All right.
Hmm. Yeah.
One more, Daniel. One more. This is going to feature a very different concept, but again, the aggression is going to be our main concept as always. Knight f6 castle. So now there was no early b5, which we obviously would like to latch on, but we can't. And so now we are really and truly in a Scheveningen structure. Which is,
Okay.
by the
Yeah.
way, another reason why I quite like playing the Kan with black, because it allows black a fairly large level of flexibility in terms of transitioning into Scheveningen structures, Naidor structures, or keeping it very Kanish.
I
Um,
see.
A4. Now we shut down B5 and we try to gain space. Also note that now we are threatening to play A5, securing the B6 square. Excuse me. So B6 or knight C6 is more or less forced. And here white went on full-on tactical assault. Um, what would be a very aggressive move here, Daniel, to your mind? Or name a few very aggressive attempts by white, trying to exploit black's backward development and, to some degree to try to blast this position open.
Okay. E5 looks attractive.
Okay, I would
To
love
do
to
that.
hear a line.
Um, let's see. Hold on one second. Um,
Somebody's talking behind you.
yeah, I don't know what I said, but it triggered my Echo, my Amazon Echo.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Wow, wow, wow.
and it's still going. So whatever I said, it triggered a conversation by her. Okay, so we're good. It stopped. Sorry about that.
No, no,
Um,
all good. Amazon Echo is scoring a free chat listen.
yeah, exactly. Um, okay, so let me take a look here at E5, um, because it definitely seems to open things up. Um, so d takes E5. Hmm. Yeah, I'm trying to figure out. So after E5, d takes e5, f takes e5, maybe queen takes f or queen takes e5
Hmm.
from there, and that's where I'm getting a little bit stumped. Um,
Can we quicker that queen with a developing move? That would be optimal.
yeah, so bishop f4 is possible.
Very good.
Okay.
Where will the queen go?
Hmm. Okay. It seems nearly trapped.
Indeed.
But I think queen can go um, to h5.
Hmm.
So queen h5. Hmm. Not sure if trading is helpful. Of course, trading queens. Um.
Trading queen is Daniel's a swear word,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
That's your general
Okay.
approach. Now, in this particular position, it's a cardinal sin,
Okay.
right? You just sacrifice the pawn to blast the position open.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the dictionary of that type of story does not have queen trades written in it at all. Only time you
Yeah.
trade queens when it's a forced mate in one.
Okay. Yeah. Um. Hmm.
I want you to keep on attacking that queen, Daniel.
Okay. Okay. Bishop e2.
Correct. And if queen random, then you can actually find a very cute idea uh, with that bishop on e2. Let's just say, for
Hmm.
argument's sake, that my queen went here. What what can you attack with that bishop on e2?
Yeah, the rook on a8.
Hmm.
So bishop f3.
And that means that we won the game because rook a7 loses the knight, yeah?
Hmm. Yep. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Wow.
So e5.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, after takes, they are not going to take. They will play knight of d7. Or will they? Because then queen f3 hits rook and pawn on f7. This is where the Sicilian becomes Daniel, an incredible jungle of calculation. But that's the story. So takes, knight here, queen f3. Bang, bang.
Nice.
Now you have to be extremely careful. I don't actually think we are threatening to take this, which makes me wonder if queen f3 is good at all. Because if they say, let's say castle, this queen gets trapped in, right?
Yeah.
Which is
Yep.
why you never stop calculating. So perhaps better move
Hmm.
here would be either queen g4 or queen h5. I'm not quite sure which one. Queen g4 is the engine's favorite move. And after g6, just pull back. And now queen e5 looks horrid because of bishop f4. And knight e5 also looks horrid because of bishop f4. With rook e1 to come.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
Okay, so immediate knight of d7 was played to disallow white to have this open f file.
Okay.
And now after takes, amazingly, Daniel, the best move here is f5, which offers the h2 pawn with check on a platter. But once again, a king stuck in the middle is far more concerning than this guy here, who is feeling perfectly safe. And now fe
Right.
is a really deadly threat, as well as queen h5 is, with hitting this and creating that pin there. And additionally to all of the above, here the machine really likes queen f3. And if bishop b7, you just slide across. And you find that bishop on h2 is actually more of a concern than a benefit.
Wow. That's amazing.
And again, it's the black king who is going to get caught. Marvelous variation.
Yeah, that's great.
In the game, actually, it was missed. They played knight e4, which is supernatural too, by the way, as in super, as in very natural. Not supernatural as in received from the UFOs. Hitting the bishop, forcing it back. And now they played f5 with the idea again of blasting this whole story open against the king.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what happened here was quite curious, though, because here, the best move, and again, this is, Daniel, the textbook chess. That here, if you don't start calculating rook e5, you are not part of the game, right? Because if we come back, this knight trades this bishop, black castles, we lose our initiative. You take this, you play queen f3, and all of a sudden we have got 7,000 threats based on this cover check hitting this, and you have a huge tempo on bringing the bishop out to f4. Textbook case of initiative over material. And by the way, I wanted to tell you this. The reason why a lot of people have this whole story miswired and misaligned in their evaluations and are extremely reluctant to sacrifice pieces is because they don't start studying chess the way they should, which is to study pawn morphy.
Yeah.
Every single chess punk and, adult improver should know the opera game by heart. And if you know as much as the opera game, you already have a completely different idea about whether it's material or initiative that is our base of evaluation.
Yeah.
And alongside the opera game, there should be, and there are at least 10 other Morphy games. Paulsen Morphy comes to mind, and a few others, where Morphy demonstrates in an absolutely stunning fashion that material is nothing, it's just painted wood for a purpose.
Right.
And if you grow up on those games, and if you model your chess around that, which everyone should do, then that is going to be the way how you approach most positions. And by the way, just so that we are clear on this, the evolvement of chess, so it's a terrible way to phrase it, but the way how chess and thinking about chess evolved was that Morphy established these very important concepts of attack, initiative, go after the king, develop the basics. And then it's not that they got forgotten, but then Steinitz and then Lasker built the positional understandings around them, not to replace them, but to complete them, right? And then we arrive at Alekhine, who essentially relieved Morphy's legacy by becoming the best attacker the chess world has ever seen, and again putting the Morphian concepts into a sort of new clothing, if you will, when his opening repertoire was far more sounds than that of Morphy's, but still did exactly the same. Then we take another massive leap and we go to Tal, who took it to an entirely new level and probably overdid it a little bit, but hello, world champion. And then we get to Kasparov, who still referred to Morphy and Alekhine as the greatest driving force behind his chess philosophy.
Interesting.
And that's a present day, essentially. So it's not like, oh, that's, what used to be trendy in the 1800s and now it's laughed upon. No, not at all. That is still the fundamental core to the greatest attacker of all times, chess.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway,
I read a Morph.
Yeah.
I read a collection of Morphy's games, one of the more popular ones right now, and it was amazing, and I learned a lot. But I don't feel like it stuck, so I feel like I need to read it again.
I dare say that you should.
Yeah.
If you didn't go like, holy cow, this guy's playing this game like very differently from everybody else, especially considering his peers, then yeah.
Yeah, I did have that realization, but it didn't change much how I played. And so I feel like, but that's the point, right? Is to change your understanding and how you play.
I suppose, but see, Morphy is one of the best examples, because in many cases what you see in Morphy's games is that Morphy just keeps on offering pieces and his opponents keep on taking them, and then they get mated.
Right.
I mean, in my opinion, there is a very strong lesson to be learned there.
Yeah, for sure.
Right? So, yes, I do recommend that you revisit that. Okay.
Yeah.
95 knight c3. So once again, as you can see, we are a pawn down. But boy, back rank fest at its finest.
Yeah. Yep.
Castles 95. Let's go after the dark squared bishop. Bishop c5. King h1. No take. We will let them suffer first with the queen. And then when it suits you, you will take.
Mm.
Now here bishop e5, bishop c3 was a cool way to go about life. And then the queen can come out this way. And also we are going to still grab the two bishops. And note that bishop b7 always gives up this pawn. I know it creates a mate threat, but once that's dealt with, we are good to munch on this boy. Huge edge to white according to the engine, despite material discrepancy. In the game, we saw bishop e2, which was a slight mistake. Now we are rerouting to the king side. Securing the knight. Now this is a little bit of a meh part of the game, so I will go through it quick. Actually, you know what? I will spare you from the rest because it's not that instructive. What we really would have loved to see was he to play this rook f5 and this exchange sack. I think this is just mental. And by the way, I'll show you what this line looks like if black plays best. Bishop b7, bishop f4, queen e6, rook e1. Adding more fuel to the fire. And after castles, queen g3. Now we have got lots of knight jumps because the rook is defended.
Mm-hmm.
And there is a gazillion white pieces aimed at the black king. And ironically, it continues like this. I mean, this is so beautiful, Daniel. If there was ever a position to stop a lesson on, this is it. Like, that is textbook centralization. Like, look at that. Oh my god. That is just divine. Here, 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 here. And this is pretty much the end of story with rook e7 pending. The bishop is hitting the rook, and if rook e8, then comes the mate attack. Takes, knight f5. It's quite amazing that actually we traded off a lot. But now the mate is unstoppable. If g6, then we go check. King here. And this is gonna be mate. f6, knight f5. Book.
Wow.
Not bad, eh? Check, check.
That's amazing.
Bang, bang, mate. That still looks to me like mighty centralization, by the way.
Yeah.
That has not gone away.
Knight and rook never get out into the game.
No, how and the knight. I mean, boy, look
Yeah.
at this. Like, that is a textbook mind over material. Like, none of these guys ever fired a shot in this entire game. Oopsie, I don't know how I did that, but yeah, sorry. Yeah, those boys in the corner, they are like, yep, well done, White Army. We would have liked to partake as well, but we didn't get a chance. Next time. Yeah.
That's great.
That's it. Daniel, we'll cut it here. This was probably a little bit deep at points, but that's the way forward.
That was great.
Obviously, you have got access to the studies, so you can go back to these games. And I do recommend you to try out one of those positions that I told you that is a good one to go to play out with friends and whatnot, just to, you know, practice those attacking skills and constantly calculate, evaluate.
Yeah, for sure. I'll definitely do that. I love it.
Right. Alrighty, Chief. That's gonna be us for today. And yeah, I will stay in touch. We will have another lesson next week before my holiday, so obviously we will see each other. When is your next game, club or otherwise?
I was supposed to have another league game this week with the Chess Dojo, but the person, my paired opponent, never got back to me. So I don't know that I'll have one through that. I'm going to try to find somebody else though this week to do that, because I usually get better sportsmanship than if I find someone randomly online. So I'm leaning more towards scheduled classical games now.
Fair enough. I understand.
Yeah.
Radio. Yeah. Well, let's go with that. Good luck. We will be in touch, obviously, in our various platforms, and then I will see you, Daniel, next Friday, if not sooner.
That sounds good. I had a question for you about the endgame homework you gave me. Did you want to like on a next lesson go over it and like that's where I share my answers with you, or
Mm.
do you want me to like email all the like the lines that I'm calculating and that kind
Actually,
of
it
thing?
wouldn't hurt if you send the lines across first, and then we'll reflect on them next lesson.
Okay, that
Is that
sounds
a
good.
problem?
No, no, not at all. No, I just didn't know if you want that
Yeah,
full
yeah,
long.
yeah.
Okay,
Definitely. Send me the
okay,
love.
okay. All right, we'll do.
No worries. Alrighty, man. Take care.
All
I
right.
will see you in the next lesson. Bye.
Thank you, Andres. Bye.
Bye.